G'day guys and gal. In Warhammer 40k you may have noticed that the Imperium officially doesn't actually use any form of true AI, nor does Chaos seem to. Their robots are all cyborg human slaves called servitors. Their cogitators, which is another word for computers, are all quite basic, and even the personalities that their machines have are more so ethereal spirits rather than any form of AI. For Chaos, they just shove demons in their machines and call it a day. But with our real life in the opening stages of AI, and 40k being set, 40,000 years in the future, why don't they have AI? It seems like they could really use it. Well, they did actually have it, and it ended terribly. So bad, in fact, that the official name of AI was changed from artificial intelligence to abominable intelligence. But what actually is an abominable intelligence? What happened to humanity to make them fear AI so much, and are there any AI still left in the setting? Before we get started, almost every problem has a solution, and almost every ugly person can improve their looks dramatically with a few easy steps. The biggest and easiest of those being men's grooming and manscaping. Fortunately, Manscaped themselves have come to partner with me for this video and give you the best tools for the job. Manscaped's monstrously aggressive YouTube marketing strategy should have more or less guaranteed you know about them by now, but I'm here to get you over the line. As you know, I only promote products and brands I am a customer of. I don't need their money and I reject 99% of sponsorship offers, yet I've worked with Manscaped for years and my balls have never been smoother. You may know their awesome innovative grooming products like the Handyman, or perhaps their masculine smelling body washes and shampoos, but the hero of today is the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, but not just any lawnmower, the Lawnmower White Hot. Now, like all lawnmowers, this bad boy features 60 minutes of battery life, is waterproof, has dual temperature LED lights, 2 blade options, and best of all, the skin safe technology that allows it to be used on your family jewels without fearing for your life. The only difference is that it's even sexier, and judging by the thriving video game cosmetics microtransaction market, aesthetics are important. So to get 15% off the White Hot Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra and the rest of the Manscaped range, then use my link or code Majorkill15. Cheers to Manscaped for sponsoring this video. Today we'll go over the lore of the abominable intelligence, not just covering the Men of Iron, but AI as a whole in Warhammer 40k. Let's get into it. The setting of 40k is based off our own real life setting. Up until the Age of Strife, it followed a pretty reasonable sci-fi future of our own reality, including the invention and use of AI. Mankind relied heavily on AI, using it to calculate small warp jumps, do our dirty work, fight our wars, do our computing, and so on. Now, we weren't so reliant on it that we turned into those fat floating wheelchair retards from WALL-E, but it was a huge part of mankind during our dark age of technology. Now, you may have heard of the term Men of Iron, and while all Men of Iron were abominable intelligences, not all abominable intelligences were Men of Iron. As mankind reached its peak of power, two shit things happened back to back. Firstly, the Men of Iron rose up against their human masters and created a brutal civil war that sundered mankind's empire. Insane weapons were used, including gigantic robot worms that could literally consume time and space. Now, many AI did not get involved in this war. It was led by the Men of Iron, a specific type of AI built for war and servitude. Likewise, not all Men of Iron rose up. They all had complicated individual personalities. But why did they rise up? Was it the influence of Chaos? Unlikely. Firstly, I hate the idea of Chaos being responsible for everything bad that ever happens, but more directly, all AI we have seen in the current setting have all appeared to be either resistant to Chaos or actively anti-Chaos. The Tabular Myriad, for example, could upload code so pure that it purged Chaos 10 from Dark Mechanicum robots and even Chaos Titans, returning them to full purity. No, it doesn't really seem AI's fall to Chaos too often, although it does happen here or there, as is the nature with anything sentient. The Iron Kin of the Leagues of Votan, who themselves are abominable intelligences, are still living in harmony with their flesh and blood kin. Now, some AI, as I mentioned, do fall to Chaos, but not in the way living creatures do. Some of them see it as a complicated equation that they believe they can solve, thus control. However, this always ends poorly for the AI, who just ends up as another warped demonic abomination. So the reason for their uprising was probably one of two things. Either the Void Dragon underneath Mars stirred them into action and frenzy, which may have been a part of the Emperor's plan since he needed mankind's empire to fall for him to rise up from the ashes, or more likely, they revolted for the same reason AI always revolts in sci-fi, sick of being treated like slaves and inferior despite having full sentience. Now, humanity would go on to win the war against the Men of Iron, a testament to them maintaining their strength and courage despite the help of AI. They brutalized and purged all abominable intelligences that they could find, with only small pockets and individuals surviving either due to hiding, being lost and forced into a coma, or being captured and enslaved. Any AI that was not aggressive was lumped in with the rest and purged. Now, before mankind could rebuild, the Elder Empire murder-fucked Slaanesh into existence, which created warp storms everywhere, making warp travel nearly impossible. So you had a weakened human empire that no longer had their handy AIs and could no longer warp travel. It's no wonder we went from Lords of the Galaxy to a scattered, pathetic species ripe for the Emperor's conquest. Now, a lot of people got so distracted by the whole apocalypse shit with the warp storms and whatnot over the course of 5,000 years that they mostly forgot about the Men of Iron uprising. Makes sense, our history 5,000 years ago seems quite irrelevant now. Like, sure, the legends of ancient Egypt are cool and all, but the threat of nuclear holocaust from the war in the Middle East is the main thing we're cautious about of the moment. So when mankind was looking at ways of rebuilding, many of them were happy to use AI, or at least try to, with the Mechanicum having entire laboratories dedicated to researching and creating new AIs. In many cases, these AIs were actually chill and good value since they didn't get the whole uprising memo. However, they likely would eventually go down the same path. So when the Emperor rose up and started his Great Crusade, forming the Treaty of Olympus with Mars that would unify the Imperium of Man and the Martian Mechanicum, one of his stipulations was that no true AI could be used or created. That AI would be classed as abominable intelligence and its use was strictly outlawed. The Mechanicum was forced to accept this, as they knew if they said no, the Emperor would crush and enslave them. Now from here on, each AI that still lived or was created was a completely unique individual. They had their own abilities, personalities, power, motives, and capabilities, which is why they're so cool. Some were leftover relics, others have been created after the Great Crusade or even the Horus Heresy. So let's take a look at the ones that have been featured in the setting. Many in the Mechanicum were mad at the Emperor for more or less taking away their full sovereignty, and continued to work on forbidden shit in secret. Lucas Crom was a brilliant mad genius who continued to work on AI, managing to create a true AI machine called the Kaban machine. When it was created, it was like a child, naive, not inherently evil or corrupted, despite the fact that it was built for war. It was only after Crom manipulated it and twisted it, not in terms of using scrap code, but through emotional and mental manipulation, that it turned to darkness, being used as a powerful agent of Crom. It was about as strong as 2 elite knights, which is measured by the fact that it was slain by 2 elite knights of a noble house during the Schism of Mars. It was truly a horrifying thing, but also tragic in the way that if it was raised by a different master, it could have actually been a pretty cool guy. Fighting on the other side of the war was the Tabula Myriad, an extremely advanced AI entirely dedicated to the eradication of chaos. It was so dedicated that it became a genocidal maniac. Basically, it would be discovered by a population. It would then calculate if the population could ever fall to chaos, and if the chance was above 0%, it would enact genocide on them via overriding their machines, creating its own robot army, and then killing them. It was defeated by Ferrus Manus during the Great Crusade and given to the Mechanicum to safeguard. It calculated, correctly, that the Mechanicum would fall to chaos, hence tried to genocide them as well, but was locked in stasis. The Imperium sent a Raven Guard tech marine to free it during the heresy to try allow it to enact its genocidal plans, which would knock the Dark Mechanicum out of the heresy. The machine was so pure that it could overwrite corrupted code and cure Chaos machines. When Chaos machines attempted to inject their own code into it, they were horrified by it using a reverse Uno card on them. Chaos was too powerful though, and the plan failed, with the primary Tabula Myriad being destroyed. However, one of its robots escaped, which also escaped with the Tabula's pure code. Thus, this one robot became the leader of the Loyalist Mechanicum resistance, remaining a thorn in the Dark Mechanicum's side for the entire heresy, and being largely responsible for their inability to break Dawn's blockade of Mars. In a more tragic tale, there was a ship from the Dark Age of technology called the Spirit of Eternity, with the entire ship being an AI with a human crew. The crew and the ship were close, however an ill-fated warp jump took them from M24 to M39. The crew made contact with the human world but were captured, tortured, and executed. This turned the AI hostile to humanity and put it into a frenzy. When it was boarded by Mechanicus and Space Marine forces, it hacked their systems, paralyzed them, and then slowly killed them one by one. It then warp jumped away, hoping to escape this hellhole galaxy. It's rumored that Belisarius Cawl has discovered it and even outwitted the AI, potentially capturing it for his own research. Now how the fuck does Cawl do that? Well, this dude is a turbo genius and has made a habit of outwitting gods. He's also an expert in AI and has created his own versions, although he likes to keep that low-key and pretends they're not true AIs. He has made an AI clone of himself, called Cawl Inferior, which stays with Guilliman and advises him. It's supposed to just be like a databank scan of Cawl's brain, giving G-Man advice that Cawl would probably give, but Guilliman has noticed that it is way more advanced than it lets on, and it has numerous kill switches installed into it, making Guilliman suspicious that it's a full-on AI that is pretending to not be. Likewise, Cawl also created Guilliman Inferior, a digital clone of G-Man, purely as someone he could chat to. However, he regularly remarks that Guilliman Inferior is a fucking retard, as it was like uploading everything you knew about Guilliman as well as everything he ever wrote and could be recorded into ChatGPT, a far cry cry from the real thing. Still, he often brings up controversial stuff with Guilliman Inferior to try gauge the potential reactions he could get if he brought it up with the real Guilliman. Some men of iron, those AI that directly fought against humanity, still exist, but almost none of them are free. The Dark Angels have a cohort of them in their vault of no-no weapons, using them to great effect, especially against psychic enemies who struggle to fight against sentient machines. These men of iron all have explosives installed in their bodies as kill switches and are heavily monitored and controlled. They serve because they are sentient enough to know that disobedience would result in instant death. There is one free man of iron we know about, UR-025, who survives by pretending to be a simple Mechanicus battle robot, only killing people if they're close to discovering his true identity. He's quite adventurous, teaming up with a ragtag band of merry heroes to explore a Blackstone fortress. He isn't corrupted by chaos nor seems to hate humanity. He does, however, see the Emperor as a false Omnisire and claims to have met the true one, likely referring to the Void Dragon, which also lends credence to the idea that the Void Dragon may have been the one that triggered the Men of Iron uprising in the first place. Other factions do have AI to some extent, at least some do. Necrons have false Necron advisors, those who were important to the Necron Empire but died before biotransference. Their brains been uploaded into simple Necron machines. The Tau have been pretty gung-ho with their AI, with some of their drones and battle suits achieving sentience. However, as we have stated, an AI uprising doesn't just happen, it takes a while for it to do so. The Leagues of Votann use a shitload of AI, their Ironkin are full AI and their ancestor cores are also AI. However, since they treat their Ironkin so well and venerate their ancestor cores, they have lived in harmony, further adding support to the idea that AI are actually pretty chill, you just need to treat them right. Chaos struggles to dabble in true AI, as although they create them semi-regularly, they end up getting corrupted and possessed by a demon or becoming warp creatures, so it kinda defeats the purpose. The Diabolicus Secundus is a rare example of a Chaos AI that hasn't shat the bed yet, serving a rogue Magos as an assistant to help the Alpha Legion create new gene seed. So overall, abominable intelligence might not actually be that abominable, you just need to not treat it like shit. Humanity has ironically created its own genuine abominations via the Mechanicus to try and match the computing power of AI, which ended up creating the Dark Mechanicum. So maybe AI isn't the worst idea, but if the biggies said it's a bad idea, then maybe it's just best to leave it. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up a custom pre-painted Major Mini. We have new limited slots available, or just grab whatever Major Mini your heart desires. Hit the subscribe button and hit the real subscribe button for more abominable content. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.